leave it to the Democrat plantation to make it so that I have to hop on the internet and explain, say the words, Black women do not belong to you. Nobody belongs to you.
Boys, be boys.
Amen.
Be boys.
Nicki, what the are you talking about? Black women are the beauty blueprint, babe. We don't need any women.
Black Americans are not doing as well as white Americans in a certain...
Today, this isn't just about Nicki Minaj. She is the example, the global case study, if you will, for today, because that's what we're watching right now is exactly what I call the Democrat plantation. And we're seeing why I call it. We're watching what I call the hunting dogs, if we were using plantation language, get released the moment one of the slaves for their ideology steps out of line. And let me be very clear. This isn't just about Nicki Minaj. This isn't just about TPUSA. This is a prime example of how the system reacts when they see Black and white people getting along. Because it dismantles where they get their emotional power from over you. This is about the phenomenon that happens the moment you exit liberal ideology, the moment you stop complying. Even to the point where people are even bringing Charlie into this. Before we go any further into my very informative rant, welcome to the Black Card Decline podcast. This is not a place for approval. This is a place for truth, multiple truths, nuanced truths. We're not a cult here. If you've been rocking with me from Instagram, Facebook, or anywhere else, welcome to a new little corner of the internet for us to hang out. It's honestly really special seeing you guys show up here, and I know the excitement has been infectious for this pod. And any feedback you have for me, let me know, because I am not true to this yet, but I will be. Now, I want to start with a clip that perfectly captures the switch up that happens the moment someone leaves liberalism. It's a bit of a ramble, so I had to trim it down, but it wraps up this concept perfectly. Let's hop into it.
Nicki Minaj sat across Erica Kirk with a BBL and a 70-inch bust-down U-part wig and told her that she just doesn't understand why Black women would tear down white women for their appearance, especially when Black women have never been appraised for their appearance. And she doesn't feel like she needs a woman with blonde hair and blue eyes to be torn down in order for her to feel beautiful. Nicki, what the are you talking about? Black women are the beauty blueprint, babe. We don't need any women to feel torn down in order to feel beautiful. We just feel beautiful. I believe she's referring to Vanity Fair's viral images of Caroline Levitt, and that has nothing to do with Black women. Nicki Minaj chose to go against her fans, her mostly queer and LGBTQ fans. She said, boys, just be boys. There's nothing wrong with being a boy. Whoa. That is profound. I think that she's just cured transgenderism. Charlie Kirk didn't even like Nicki Minaj. He said that the civil rights movement was a mistake, and without the civil rights movement, without the Black American people that put their life on the line so that we could have rights, so that we could live the life that we are currently living today, she wouldn't have even been allowed on that stage next to that white woman. But not surprising, because when money and power is involved, people have that every man for themselves mentality. Nicki says she about to be a house immigrant, not a field immigrant.
All right. There are 3 things I want to break down from this clip. One is that there's this idea that feminism is about uplifting women until a woman slips outside of your ideological bubble. The moment she does, everything becomes fair game. Yeah, her appearance, her body, her character, her intelligence, her past, all of that women supporting women stuff, it completely disappears the second that you refuse to comply. Now, let's be honest, all right? The only reason you feel the need to tear someone else down is because you're already down yourself, and that's why I want to show you guys this next clip. Let's go ahead and check it out.
If as Black women, we felt that we were not being represented and not being admired for our beauty, if we felt like that as Black women, why would we want to do that to other women? Why would we now need to make other people downplay their beauty so that we can feel, no, that's not how it works. I don't need someone with blonde hair and blue eyes to downplay their beauty because I know my beauty. Do you understand? It doesn't bother me that a woman feels and says that she's beautiful.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with what she said. Nothing. You guys, this is textbook plantation thinking. The minute you leave, you mean nothing. You're shunned, you're dehumanized, you're destroyed. Your feelings no longer matter, and your words are intentionally misinterpreted. Your humanity becomes something that's conditional to these people. Now, it's actually insane. It's truly scary to watch, but the second thing I want to pull out of this is the claim that Charlie wouldn't approve of Nicki being on that stage. This is where it becomes painfully obvious that people never understood context when it came to Charlie's words. And I mean, on my platforms, my context series after he passed became so important and went so viral because of the fact that, yes, Charlie said he didn't like the Civil Rights Act, but what people are failing to realize is that they have conveniently left out that he immediately followed that statement by saying that he loved what it did for Black Americans and believed it should remain. His issue was with how it has been used and expanded since then, like, for example, being used as leverage to allow men in women's restrooms. Now, let's go ahead and play that clip so we can bring some context into the room, something that is not exactly a liberal strong suit. So let's check that out. Yeah.
They think this guy is a racist?
You said the Civil Rights Act was a mistake. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so the parts of the Civil Rights Act were great, but the way it's now being implemented to force men in female bathrooms to push forward of the trans agenda, the intent of the Civil Rights Act is way beyond what it was originally authored for.
But the intent specifically originally was to
Well, that's
desegregate.
interesting. So the intent and the law are two different things. So the intent was noble, which was to say that no American can be not allowed into a place of business based on the color of their skin or their ethnic heritage. Totally agreement with that. That's not what the law only did. It created a massive anti-racist DEI army that then gave us affirmative action. For example, recently Merrick Garland sued using the Civil Rights Act, saying that we cannot have voter ID in certain states because it's a violation of the Civil Rights Act. So basically what the Civil Rights Act did is that it went beyond disparate impact and then went to disparate effect. In the sense where if Black Americans are not doing as well as white Americans in a certain category, you can now use the Civil Rights Act and say that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act, even though there might be other contributing factors.
Now, I'll leave his words there, and I want you to compare them to what people claim he meant. That disconnect is exactly what we're dealing with when it comes to the leftist ideology, which brings me to the third point, this idea that Charlie wouldn't want Nicki on the stage at all. I disagree vehemently. I disagree pretty intensely with this, just because nothing Charlie ever said was to push people away from Christ. He was never about condemnation. He just wanted growth and accountability for people. Now, Nicki is on her own journey with God, obviously, and she's doing it on a world stage. That means we're seeing the imperfect parts, the messy parts, the gradual transformation that most of us go through in private, right? Behind closed doors. If you saw or continued to be able to watch on the world stage my experience with Christ, we'd be having a very different conversation. So her standing on that stage, dressed modestly, openly defending Christians, openly talking about Christ, and standing next to his wife, bringing millions of eyes into that space, I applaud it. I mean, if Charlie believed that only perfect people were allowed at the table, Trump wouldn't be anywhere near that stage either. Right? So no, I don't believe he would be upset. I think he would have been incredibly proud to see someone that he used to criticize with that level of influence being platformed for Christianity and for conservative values. I loved it. I thought it was awesome and powerful. What makes this whole thing a little sad is the cruelty coming from people who used to be fans. And it's draws so much parallel into what happens to conservatives in general, or people that even have one conservative value, right? So I want to pivot to another clip. The clip that is making it so people are saying that she is now homophobic and transphobic, kind of similar to when I made my I'm not a cis woman, I'm a woman video, and it caused a bunch of outrage. So let's take a look.
Boys, be boys.
Amen.
Be boys. It's okay. Be boys. It's nothing wrong with being a boy. How about that?
Amen.
How powerful is that? How profound is that?
Amen.
Boys will be boys, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Life-changing stuff. I mean, when was the last time you saw a tomboy or a feminine boy? You don't really see it anymore, right? I grew up around tomboys. My sister was a tomboy. I had a tomboy phase too. And what's so scary, honestly, when I think about it, is that now having masculine or feminine traits doesn't mean that you're going through a phase. No, it means you are literally the opposite gender. That's why we're seeing such a rise in transgenderism among youth instead of allowing kids to just be. We have to categorize them. We have to medicalize them. We need to lock them into identities they're too young to fully understand. And the fact that she said that, the fact that I said that, the fact that any conservative says that means that we have a phobia, an irrational fear of trans people. And that right there is where we're going to lead into me wanting to zoom out a little, because this isn't just a left problem anymore, and this may make a couple people a little mad, and that's perfectly fine with me, okay? We need to talk about how we somehow manage to create a woke right. Yeah, there's a woke right now. And this growing culture, this how dare you culture in the right, is because a lot of the people who left the woke left hive mindset, instead of actually becoming free thinkers, they walk straight into the right-wing hive mindset. They created the same behavior in a different font, if you will. Now there's a right way to be a conservative, which is weird, a right way to be a Christian, a right way to talk, a right way to question or not question things. Right? And if you don't align with that exact formula, then suddenly you mean absolutely nothing to these people. When I take a step back and look at this from a macro level, not this nitpicky, hyper emotional, microscopic perspective, it feels very weird. There are odd things happening across the board, and I feel the need to pledge allegiance, or I really don't feel the need to pledge allegiance to one narrative or the other just to feel safe within a group, because conservatism was never supposed to be like this. It's getting out of control. The left is attacking the right is attacking the right is attacking the right, the left is attacking the left, and we're actively watching our society unravel while all of these powerful people move the pieces quietly behind the scenes. Now, the whole concept of grifting ends up coming into play here because Nicki is being accused of doing this for money and power. And I'll get into how conservatism really isn't something that you get into for the money, but as it pertains to Nicki, this whole concept kind of goes out the window because Nicki is extremely wealthy. She's a multi-millionaire. She's one of the most successful Grammy Award winners. She has one of the most loyal, die-hard fan bases in the entire music industry. And the idea that she is grifting for money and power is honestly comical to me. She already has all the money and power that anyone in their industry could have ever dreamt of. So that argument completely falls apart when you apply even the smallest amount of logic. In my opinion, or when it comes to being a conservative, I can only speak from the perspective of a Black conservative, you're always labeled a grifter or you're accused of trying to gain alignment with white people, or you're accused of betraying Black people, you get hit with the house slave narrative almost immediately, which is ironic because most Black conservatives are actually advocating for the exact opposite of dependency on white guilt or white funding. We're pushing for separation of government reliance, separation from white guilt, separation from the idea that we need anyone else to survive or succeed. Meanwhile, so much of the leftist mindset revolves around what we can get, how we can get it, what the government can give us, and what white people supposedly owe us. So, this idea that we're the ones seeking white validation or white praise, it is always so fascinating to me, considering that the leftist ideology is deeply rooted in white approval and white assistance. You know? Now, another part of the is money. And as a content creator, let me be very clear with you. The money is not in conservative content. I have spoken with multiple content creators. It's all the same. If you want to make money online, you either don't talk about politics at all or you're a liberal. Brands overwhelmingly align with liberal creators or people who stay neutral, and conservative creators make the least amount of money in this space, unless you're at the very top, like Candace Owens or Megan Kelly, for example. But brands are not lining up to work with us because our views are extremely polarizing. They're considered unpopular, they're considered risky, right? And so when people say we're in it for the money, it proves once again that context is not the less strong suit, because you could do a single Google search and you'd realize conservative creators are not cashing out like people think. If I were in this for the money, I'd be a liberal every single day of the week. No hesitation. 100%. Now, circling back to Nicki, the idea that she's doing this for the money and power is insane. She could blink, snap her fingers, and say anything, and her friends would follow. She doesn't need this. She never did, and it's just silly to me. It's just silly. But one thing I really wanted to touch on today is how all this just wraps up in a perfect little bow when you look at it through the lens of colonization, and how deeply it has still infiltrated the minds of the Black community. Because when people hear the word colonization, they usually think about the physical aspects of slavery, the chains, the ships, the labor, the whips. But very few people talk about the psychological implications it caused and how long those implications have lasted. And this isn't me harping on slavery. This is me acknowledging the fact that during slavery and even through Jim Crow, Black people had to think collectively. We had to move in a congruent and uniform way to survive. That mindset made sense when it was an active physical threat, but what we're seeing now is people continuing to operate from that same survival framework without the threat. We no longer live in this hyper racist society where you step onto the other side of the political coin, you step into the other side of the tracks, and you're stepping into the arms of people who want to lynch you. We don't live in a world where disagreement equates to death, and yet people still think that way. Right? That's what's underlying. That's the deep subconscious of this mindset. And there's Black people that genuinely believe that if we see a Black person moving away from liberal ideology, you're aligning yourself with people who hate you, who want you dead, or are actively trying to harm you simply because of your skin color. And that's colonization speaking. That's Jim Crow thinking. It's honestly heartbreaking to watch because just recently on Instagram, I posted something very simple. I said, we are free as Black people. And the amount of people who immediately called me a coon and a sellout and a race traitor was unreal, you guys. Absolutely unreal. And it's all because I said we are free. The response tells you everything that you need to know. And it tells you what's still left behind. This idea that freedom itself is threatening, that empowerment is something that's suspicious, and that evidence or independence of mind is a betrayal. And to anyone watching who feels the urge to educate or liberate or guide or empower someone just a little bit toward freedom, understand this. Freedom is power precisely because no one owns you. No one has power over you. No one wants power over you. They just want power over your votes and your emotions and your money. And that's all it is. So I don't find any sort of comfort in using the suffering of my ancestors as social currency to guilt people, to shame people, to mentally enslave people to an ideology. It's far more insulting than someone choosing to live freely. You know what I mean? And I find that infinitely more offensive than this idea that I'm making my ancestors roll over in their graves because I refuse to be mentally boxed in or enslaved to a mindset. We need to check out of that. And one of my hopes with this podcast, you guys, is that I start receiving more messages than I already have from Black people who say their eyes have been opened to the concept of freedom. I love seeing Nicki actively walk in her freedom. But freedom is hard because you accept that everyone struggles. Women struggle, Black women struggle, Black people struggle, white people struggle, Latinos struggle. Everyone struggles. And freedom means you're accepting both the freedom to succeed and the freedom to fail, right? And so when you do fail, you're accepting the fact that it's probably you. Now, don't get me wrong. We don't live in a perfect free market. Government has its tentacles and everything, but freedom itself is not your enemy. Your mindset is, right? Your mindset is the problem 99.9% of the time. And what we're seeing now is a collective trauma response to what people didn't even have to live through. So I hope this episode brought you value. I hope it made you think. I hope it challenged you in a good way. And most importantly, I am so, so happy that you came to spend some time with me during your busy life. And if you have topics you want me to cover in future episodes, if you have any pointers for me, let me know. I'll be genuinely reading the comments to see what you guys want and what I can do better. This is my first episode, so be nice. And if nothing else, I'm just glad you came. Now, if you want to subscribe and see what's coming next, go ahead. If you think I did a good job, like the video. And most importantly, you guys are awesome. I love this, and I'm so excited for this new journey to take with you guys. Talk to you later. Bye.